All right, cool. So in this part of the 402 and step 402, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go in one step further from the progress bar. We'll have loaded our application, and the next thing we want people to do is to log in. We don't want to just present our application to anybody. So what that's going to look like, and if you notice I'm just in my area 51, that's where I explored this next step. And you'll have it actually live to go with it. You'll see we have our current 401, and then instead of just sitting there when the progress bar loads, now we're presented with a login form, and we're just going to go ahead, we're going to put in the login form, and then we're going to do a quick validation and get us into the site. So again, just simple. This is where we currently 401 stops with the loading, and this gives us the additional information as far as this goes. At this point in time, really what we're doing is just a generic login, nothing real special. All we're requiring is that there's information in the box in order to get in, and once we're in, we're good to go. Awesome. So with that said, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We want to go ahead and pull up our Dreamweaver and our commander. We know that we just checked out the branch, but let's go ahead and do a get status and just make sure that things are clean. I usually do a clear too, and I can see that I'm inside my 4x6 project. I'm on branch 402-0, which is where I want to be. I come over to Dreamweaver and I can see that that is where I am as well. Awesome. So the first thing that we want to do is in this step, we know that we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a style sheet. We want that style sheet for our login form to do some control over our application. So since that's what we want to do, the first thing that we'll do, and you're welcome to go and copy this down from my GitHub, the style sheet, we'll go ahead and we'll put a new folder under assets, and we'll call that CSS. And inside there we'll put a new file, and of course we'll call that style.css. One thing I did not do that I want to do real quick is, although I'm peeking at where I'm headed, I also want to see where I'm at. And so in order to do that, I need to go ahead and go back out to localhost and get myself into where we currently are, so that as we're applying things and want to test them, I'm pointed right at the same folder that I'm working in with Dreamweaver. Awesome. Now that I have my style CSS there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste in the CSS. And as I said before, you are more than welcome to just go ahead and put this CSS from my GitHub repository, go and get it out of the branch. You'll want to get it out of the 402 branch and grab that CSS so that you don't have to type it in. And again, we can discuss any questions on what this is doing. Please feel free to ask. At this point, honestly, a lot of this should just make sense to you as far as the padding and box sizing and things like that, and we are learning JavaScript, so we're not going to focus too much on CSS. Great. Now that we have our CSS put together, and we really want to make sure we're using our CSS now instead of trying to do any kind of styling. And honestly, with this application, big thing that we're trying to do is just leverage Bootstrap and what it offers, and not do too much styling outside of that, along with the templates that we use as well. A lot of the code is just right from Bootstrap. Next thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and I want to pull that style sheet into Dreamweaver, and let me go ahead and change my view here just to code so we can see what's going on in there. And what I want to do, as crazy as it sounds, normally we want to put our style sheet down below, but for now I'm actually going to bring it in above Bootstrap, because I want Bootstrap defaults to pretty much own the styles at this point in time. The more I can stay to Bootstrap, the less customization I have, the better off I am in this scenario at this time. Let's go ahead and signify as well that this is 0, just in case we go to make another branch. I think we may end up making another branch, but not completely sure. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. And when I save that, it should actually, which it did, it just did, bring in my style sheet so that I can see that as well. Let's put a .0 there and a .0 here just to be explicit so we know exactly when we're looking at it what branch we brought this in. Awesome. So at this point, we'll go out and we'll take a peek, see if there was any changes resulting from that. And we look good at this point in time. I do have console open. I'll go ahead and open it down below so that we can watch for errors in here as we're moving along. And let's go ahead and put that off to the side. I actually was using it in this mode. When you have two monitors, you can open console on another monitor. It's really nice for developing and troubleshooting and seeing what's going on. So we look good there. So at this point, we've gone ahead and we've connected our style sheet. And so the next thing that we want to do is start working on our application itself, on the JavaScript inside it. We're not going to add too much. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to go and we're going to look in our displayPB function, right? So that's our display progress bar function, and we want to be able to call that at any time throughout the application whenever we're working on things. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new function, and this new function is going to be called formLogin. And what we're going to do with this formLogin is we can see, honestly, we're just injecting HTML, and the way that we're returning the form, giving anybody calling the function the option to display that information wherever they choose to. So the reason that we do it this way is we don't want we may not always want it to go right into the body. We may want it to go into a modal, and we may want the form to actually fit into a drop down. So by doing it this way, we can just ask for the form and get it back. You'll notice that we do have the IDs. We're calling the IDs of the form, and you can go ahead and break this down if you want to by simply just copying it. We'll come over here, we'll say new and just HTML. We're not going to save it, so it's not a big deal. But what we can do with this is we can paste that in there and apply source formatting, and that way we can really see what our form looks like. We can see that we're adding the class of animated zoom into our form. We can see that we are doing div classes with form group. And also, this will help you with your, getting this together and putting it into your application. We're doing form checks. So form check, basically, what we're doing is check label, right? And we're giving feedback. Basically, this is how we're giving the feedback, is through this label, and how we're going to get the information in there. The big thing that we want to pay attention to is that we're learning about something new. We've talked about event listeners and how events drive JavaScript, and this one is actually the same thing as putting that window get element by ID event or whatever. This is an inline event where we're basically just saying, hey, anytime somebody clicks on this, call this function, which we have not created yet, but we're telling it to validate login function, to call that function and validate the login. So obviously you would write this code out. I'll pause, I'll pause for a minute or for 30 seconds for you to pause the video so that you can actually look at the code and get the code in. And then the way that you would do it is basically you just break all your code down into one line. There are different tools that you can use for this. Notepad++ has a way. Be careful when you're doing it this way, because the potential for error for deleting things is there. We'll get that out. And at this point, if you do it this way, we can now take this one line, which is what we want, a one-liner, and we can copy that and we can paste it right into there. And if you notice, I'm opening the return with single quotes because I'm using all double quotes inside here, and therefore it treats it excellent as one line. So if I hit save, at this point, what we need to do is we need to call this formLogin after the loader is done. So the way that we do that is we know that once the loader hits 100, it'll take the negative, it'll take the false in here, and it'll come down and it'll reset the timer counter, and it'll return false, basically telling JavaScript to stop working. So if I go ahead and I paste this in here, what I'm doing is basically when that happens, when that JavaScript stops working, when it hits 100, we're saying, hey, document body inner HTML with an equals, because we just want to replace whatever is in the body with the formLogin. And when we do it this way, what'll happen is that we will end up with our login just coming in. We know that it's going to animate in, so it's going to zoom in. And let's go see what that looks like. So here we are on localhost. This is where we've gotten up to. Let's go ahead. We'll do the refresh. We have our loader going, and there we go. We are at our login. And if you'll notice, we actually have it pre-populated. This is a development step that you like to do as a developer, meaning if I go back into my code, you'll see in the, like for the password, I've put a value. For the email, I've put a value. And the reason that I've done that is so that I don't have to keep on pressing that in there, typing that in there as I'm developing and moving along. So pretty cool. At this point, what's really cool is that we now have this login. It's there. We'll get an error, of course, and it'll just go back to here because we do not have our validation in yet. So that'll be our last step here, which we'll go ahead and we'll do validation. We'll just put in a temporary validation script, so that, not temporary, but a beginner, and we won't get too involved for the sake of moving on, and we'll work in that validation script at a later time, in a later step. So for now, my validation script is going to essentially just have in it, I'm going to grab the value by pointing at that and asking what the value is, right? So I'm pointing at email. I'm saying get element by ID. My ID is right here, and I'm pulling that in, and I'm populating this variable with email with the value of the email field. Same thing with the password, except password is PWD. Right here is the ID, and I'm asking it for the value. And I'm basically in this conditional statement saying if you're not empty, if email's not empty and password's not empty, then go ahead and replace the HTML in the body with this string of HTML. If not, alert bad, and actually what we want to do there is also return false. So if we go out and we validate our work and we refresh it, an empty cache, we get our form, we hit submit, and we are now in. If we do it again, we take away a value, we hit submit, we get bad, and we just stay there. So if we put a value in, it brings us in. Awesome. So at this point, what we've done is we've added the formLogin and the validateLogin, two pieces of code that you'll have to write. And we've called the formLogin once the progress bar was completed. And we've called the validate function with an inline event listener. And that's what allowed us to trip this off. We came in here, we check if the email is blank, null, has no value. Password is blank, null, has no value. And if they both have something in them, we just go ahead and we populate the body with this, and we're actually just attaching animation class to give it some style. And then if one of these are blank, it'll alert bad and return false, meaning it just won't do anything anymore, and we should be good. We actually have 2 return falses there, and that return false should prevent it from the same thing that we want. Let's go ahead and test that real quick. Yep, good. So we did double up on the return false in there. We don't need to do that, because either way, what we want it to do is when it's completed, either doing this DOM injection or doing this alert, we want it to just say, okay, stop executing your JavaScript. We put in our style sheet. You can go get the styles. Once again, you can go grab those styles off of GitHub and get them out of there. And we updated our index as well to include that style sheet. And we actually did something a little different. We put it above loading our other styles. Eventually, we'll probably move that down. But right now, we kind of want Bootstrap to win everything. So the last thing we're going to do before we move on to the next video is we're going to go ahead and do a git status. And we're going to see all our changes that are in there. So we'll go ahead and do git add dot. And actually, we wanted to close these files out. We're not saving that one. Our styles we wanted. Let's go ahead. Let's just do one more git status to make sure nothing got wonky. So we're good. We can see our changes: style CSS, app, index.html. So at this point, what we would like to do is we have the git styles app done, and we added them. So we're going to go ahead and do a git commit -m, and we're going to put in there, we added a login screen and validation function. And when we say login screen, let's say login screen function, because we use that to draw it out. Additionally, we added a style.css file for the form styles and linked it in the head of the index.html file. We probably would also add a little note here letting them know we intentionally added the style.css above the others to allow for Bootstrap to overwrite any styles we add. And we just do that kind of as a precautionary thing for now, just to allow Bootstrap to take hold. So let's go ahead, commit, git status, and we are good. So I'll see you in the next video where we'll go ahead and we'll merge this in, and we'll do our push to production.